So I've come to Flexis here in Villebon, in France, funnily enough, and I've got Matt Hawkins. I need to ask him a few questions because, I mean, Matt, we've heard accusations in the press. Startups are not listening to fleet. What would you say to that?
I think our approach proves otherwise, certainly. The approach that we're taking with customers is what we call a project sales approach. So it's less about immediately talking to customers with a commercial mindset, and it's more about bringing a range of different stakeholders from Flexis's business to talk to a range of different stakeholders in the customer's business and really understand how they operate, what their pain points are, where they want to improve, and what their day-to-day challenges are, so that we can then build a really detailed business case that addresses them before we even start having any sort of commercial discussion.
So it sounds much more like a partnership then, where you're really integrating your business with theirs.
100%, you know, a partnership is the ideal approach from us, because it means that we're invested in the customer's business, the customer is invested in us, and ultimately we can have really detailed, really transparent discussions with them.
Yeah. You've got the title behind, the revolution of urban logistics. I mean, Matt, tell me, because is it going to be that? Because, you know, we've heard this before, haven't we, from a number of startups. It's one of those things that strikes fear into the heart of many a fleet manager these days. So give us some confidence that you're going to be here for the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's the plan. You know, that's why we've been set up in the way that we have. We have two real industry giant OEMs as financial backers in the business, and we're able to draw on a lot of their experience. And I think when you look at some of the startups that have come and gone over the last couple of years, what you start to realize in their story and in their journey is that building a new OEM and building a brand is really, there's two sections to it. There's building a vision and building a prototype and building something that you can wow a customer with that addresses what they want. But then there's the scaling of that up to the point where you can manufacture and manufacture at volume. And because of the relationship that we have with Renault, that scaling piece is taken care of from day one. So, you know, through the contract manufacturing process, we are using the Renault plant in Sandouville to manufacture our product. And that means from day one, we can manufacture significant volumes and work backwards from there to give customers that confidence to know that, look, when we talk to you, when we go through that project sales process, when we get to the point of discussing what your needs are, you can have the full confidence to know that you're not going to have an endless wait for vehicles to arrive.
And let's be clear, you are a business standalone, so you're not Renault, you're not Volvo, and you're not your logistics partners, CMA CGM. Yeah, CGM. You're not those guys either. But you're kind of taking the best of them all and the capabilities of them all. We've heard, I heard from Seb talking about the excellence in uptime around from Volvo and the manufacturing expertise that Renault bring in the van sector. Yeah. I mean, this kind of should give us a lot of confidence, shouldn't it?
It sounds like a terrible cliche, and it probably is, but actually we are genuinely the best of both worlds. You know, we have that experience and that backing to be able to manufacture and to be able to develop connected services both in-house and with partners, but we also have the agility and the flexibility to operate as a startup business, or in the same way as a startup business, with a much kind of smaller team, and be a lot more intricate and a lot more flexible and agile around what our customers need and want.
So Matt, we've got the vehicles here with us. What are the target markets for these vehicles? Because they feel like they're very specific to each segment.
Yeah. So the three vehicles that we have are very much focused towards urban logistics. That's our core market. We've specifically designed the vehicles around certain factors that lend themselves particularly well to that market. And whilst, you know, it's a fully electric vehicle from the ground up on a native skateboard platform, the panel van will work as per a panel van for any customer. There are certain nuances that make it specifically fantastic for urban logistics, and that goes for the cargo van and the step-in van as well.
So come and introduce me to each of these vehicles. So Matt, this is one of your babies, the Flexi van, but it's the panel van.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that I've noted that are special, but what's special about it for you?
So the panel van, I mean, there are things about it that have been designed with that urban logistics piece in mind. Things like 1.90 metre height, which means we can get into underground car parks and city centres. Things like that are I guess, demonstrate our thinking towards the target customer that we're working with. But there are also things that are quite specific to an EV platform that's been designed as an EV platform from the ground up. So the turning circle on this vehicle is only 10.3 metres, which is closer to that of a small B-segment car rather than a traditional van. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but the nimbleness that gives you and the agility in an urban environment where we know that vans like this typically, they're workhorses, they get knocked around. The ability to manoeuvre the van more easily is great. Also things that really demonstrate that generational leap in terms of our vehicles versus the previous set of electric vans that are out there. So in our larger battery configuration, you've got a peak charging power of 240 kilowatts DC, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
And the more important figure than that is the time of charging. So that's 10% to 80% charge in 20 minutes.
Wow.
That really kind of puts into context just how much time saving there could be for a delivery driver who's on the clock, who's trying to get through a shift and needs to do a top-up charge in order to complete their rounds. Really, really important. Range figures that we're getting from the prototypes that we have are extremely promising. We're looking around the 280 mile range as it stands today, but still more than 12 months away from start of production, which means from a software development point of view and an ongoing development of the prototyping process, there's still scope to improve on that as well.
And it is fantastic, and it is really confident. I love the fact that many of the elements that you talked about are just mechanical, pure fact. The range, we know that is WLTP and all of those kind of stuff, and real world will come into it. But given the environment that they're operating in, it does sound like it's going to be quite achievable.
It does, and the operators that work in that last mile space, maximum range is not really their highest, their biggest consideration, because the drivers don't tend to do that many miles, but it's more about how you ensure that you've got that operational efficiency.
I love the charging speed stuff, because there's a lot of customers out there, not necessarily in the urban logistics market, but want that speed of charge that, 20 minutes, that is going to halve the time that they're spending currently on charging, which means more money on the bottom line, which, as far as EVs are concerned, it's been a tax, but now not going to be so much. So which is great news.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't you tell me about the step-in van?
Okay.
So Matt, we've got the step-in van. I'm loving some of the design things that have been thought about this. I was talking to Seb earlier. I mean, the focus on the driver is just superb. Tell me a little bit about this vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, this is our halo. This is the vehicle that's really been designed specifically for that urban logistics driver to maximise time saving, to maximise efficiency, to minimise kind of downtime in the day-to-day operation, but also to really put the driver at front of mind, because it's so important that those drivers are able to stay healthy, they're able to stay motivated, and they're able to stay comfortable, because this is their office. They're working in it day in, day out. There's a plethora of design features on this vehicle that are all about putting the driver first. And if we start with the exterior of the van, you've got things like an industry-leading low step-in height. First and foremost, that is going to be reducing the strain on drivers' hips, knees, backs. And put that into context, these guys are in and out of these vehicles over 100 times a day. So step-in height might not be a massive consideration to somebody that's not doing that and they're using the van for long journeys, for example. But a delivery driver, it's a colossal... I think the estimate in the calculation that we did was that by reducing the step-in height to where it is, we save the equivalent of climbing the Eiffel Tower twice every month for a delivery driver.
Being here in France, I see why it's the app.
But then you've got the sliding doors on the side of the vehicle as well. Again, designed with the driver front of mind, designed to go straight back when the driver opens the door, so you don't have that jarring that you would normally have on a slide loading door, to have to pull the door out to then slide it. Nice big handles on the side and the same on the inside, so if a driver's carrying a package, they can easily kind of nudge the door open and be able to get in and out of the vehicle. We've got a seating position and an interior configuration that is fantastic for logistics, for safety, for convenience, and for security as much as anything else. So I'd love to take you into one of our really early interior design mules and just show you how the cab operates.
Do you know what? I love these things because these are the things that kind of really give you a different view and how you get to the developments. Let's get in there.
Yeah,
go on, fantastic. In you go.
Well, first and foremost, in here in the cab as a driver, what you've got is an elevated driver seat. So if you think about traditionally in a van to get in and out, there's quite a bit of effort to get yourself raised up. But from a really comfortable driving position in here, the driver can swing their knees around and stand up really, really easily. So again, similar to the step-in height, you take a load of stress and strain away from the hips of the driver. You've also got a bulkhead door which allows you into the loading area. From a security point of view, really fantastic because you can keep all of the exterior doors locked. The driver can go and find the parcel that they're going to be delivering and they can bring it back out into here, close the bulkhead door and have everything secured before they then go and do their parcel delivery. And just really obvious stuff like having a jump seat rather than a fixed permanent seat.
Yeah.
That means the driver can pull up on the curb, they can get out through the sliding door straight onto the curbside rather than having to open the door into traffic, which is a colossal risk for them.
And one of the things that I've heard a little bit about, and I need you to explain this to me, because what I loved about what Seb was saying was that you're reducing the mental load and you're reducing the physical load. Talk to me about that mental load, especially in context with this lovely little button here. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we've incorporated what we call a delivery button into the vehicle, and the delivery button is designed to be fully configurable. So it goes back to the whole point about a software-defined vehicle and the advantages that you get from that. It would be really easy to design a button that we call a delivery button and say, well, it does X, Y, and Z. But actually what we've done is kind of flip that on its head and gone, we've designed a delivery button, Mr. Customer, what would you like it to do? And there's a whole range of things that we can configure that button to do that sit in line with the values and the requirements of the fleet that's going to be operating the vehicle. So it could be things like putting hazard lights on, putting the parking brake on, opening the bulkhead door, locking the exterior doors, and a whole range of other things, interior lighting as an example. And that button can really do whatever the customer wants to do. So back to the project sales approach, part of what we want to do is work with our customers, really kind of shadow drivers and understand what the challenges they have in their day-to-day operations. And then we can take that back to the fleet and say, if you were to do this with the delivery button, actually we can save your drivers 15 seconds per drop. If you can save that 15 seconds by 100 deliveries per day and take away all of that mental fatigue for the driver, the benefits are huge.
Yeah. I mean, time is money, but also time on the driver as well. It's wear and tear on the driver, so you've got the ergonomics of the vehicle giving physical health and mental health back to the driver. It's a perfect solution for me.
Coupled with operational efficiency for the fleet as well, so it really is a win-win.
Yeah. So Matt, tell me about the cargo van. It's a concept that I haven't really warmed to in my life, but you guys have got a vision for this. So what is that?
Yeah, so the cargo van, I mean, shown here with an example of a box body on the back of it, but essentially the vehicle is produced as a chassis cab that you could put whatever you wanted onto the back of it. And there's a range of different applications in logistics particularly, but also outside of that as well. I guess the main thing to call out with the cargo van is that you've got the same skateboard platform, the same fully EV, designed from the ground up approach. And in the case of the way that we've engineered the vehicle, that's a massive advantage when it comes to conversions. The battery cell and the battery pack forms part of the structural rigidity of the chassis, which means that unlike on an ICE-derived vehicle where you need additional steel to be able to get the structural rigidity for a chassis cab, with our vehicle, the platform is ready built for a conversion to go on the back of it. So early indications from some of the conversion partners that we're talking to is that the vehicle will be significantly easier to build a conversion onto than a traditional ICE vehicle.
And that's probably why I haven't yet got my head around it, because thinking my old world mentality, the medium-sized van didn't lend itself well to this kind of solution. And this is what we've got, a medium-sized, but the rigidity of the chassis and the other elements provide a different canvas for the ever imaginative industry of converters in the UK to get their head around it and make something good of it.
Yeah, and again with the full EV platform, the fact that we're able to move everything forward because we don't have a combustion engine in the front means that you've actually got more space on the chassis at the back to be able to create effectively, in some instances, the same use case as you would normally have for a heavy van, but put it onto a medium van chassis.
And I think that's fair to say across the range, isn't it, that you've got more capacity in footprint terms, or relation to footprint, than you would do in a typical medium or small size van, in particular when thinking about the panel van, you know, because the size of it is probably the size of some of the small vans out there, but the capacity is towards a reasonable medium size van.
And that's the beauty of what you get when you take your thinking away from having a platform that can take multiple different powertrains and focus purely on EV. You know, it's a huge benefit, and it creates a much more flexible platform on which a van can be built.
Matt, one of the things that throughout my career in commercial vehicles, the importance of uptime has always stayed with me from my early days with the first manufacturer that I worked for, all about kind of out of hours servicing, response times and all that sort of stuff. My time in lease plan, we built a product called Uptime because it was so important for our operators and our customers. How is it central to what you do?
Well, I think you're right. I think uptime is one of those areas that hasn't really translated from HGV into LCV. And the feedback that we get from customers all the time is that when an HGV goes down and something goes wrong, it is a 999 emergency because it's immediately costing money. But when you translate that story to an LCV, things don't work quite the same, and LCVs end up in queues at dealers and all sorts of stuff, which causes big problems. The huge advantage of the software-defined platform and the data that we can get from it with our vehicles, apart from the obvious fact that it's an EV platform and there's a lot less to go wrong in the first place, but the SDV platform gives us so much more data on which to make decisions and build up an understanding of, one, how we can mitigate downtime instances, but more importantly that, how we can actually eradicate them altogether. So an example being, if we have 5,000 vehicles on the road and we know that 70% of them have a particular sensor that needs to be changed after 20,000 miles, we won't wait until that sensor goes wrong on a vehicle and then the customer has to contact us to arrange for it to go in to be replaced. We'll just proactively contact that customer at 19,000 miles and say, we can come and do a little bit of work on your vehicle under warranty that will prevent that from ever becoming an instance. That's a huge benefit to fleets.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I remember videos that have been created, never acted out in reality, but created to say, you'll meet people. I mean, it was in the car world, right, where the vehicle would be predicted to go wrong, and somebody would meet you with a loan car, and you would swap over and seamlessly drive off into the sunset, literally. But we never made that a thing, and many a telematics company have talked about that. But you are confident that this is something that you can bring to market.
It is, and I think the power of the data coupled with the experience of our investors, particularly Volvo Group from their experience with uptime on HGVs, the fact that we'll have our own uptime centre means that we've constantly got the ability to understand what's going on in the fleet in real time and be able to proactively contact a customer either to prevent something from going wrong, or if something does happen that's out of the ordinary or something that can't be avoided, we can not only contact the customer and make sure they're aware of it really, really early on, but also take steps to minimise the impact of that. So whether that is a mobile technician, whether it's being able to have priority slots at a dealer where the vehicle might need to be on a ramp for the few occasions where it might ever need to be. But we can work with our customers to really make sure that anything is, if it can't be prevented, which would be our preference, then it can certainly be mitigated and the impact can be lessened.
So Matt, we're in a different mule this time, one giving us a picture of the cab of the panel van and of the cargo van. Yeah. But something needs to keep these things going, doesn't it? And we touched on the energy and the batteries and stuff like that, but how do you guys, with all your software-defined vehicles and understanding the energy in and out of all of these vehicles and the unique stuff that you're bringing to market, how do you help users and operators to move to electric?
It's about data, fundamentally, and I think that's one of the things where software-defined vehicles really do stand out from legacy vehicles that are out there in the market. Our approach, I've talked before about the project sales approach and how we gather information from customers in the pre-sale part of the dialogue, but the software-defined vehicle and the data that we get from it allows us to give a really great fleet management experience as well. When it comes to things like energy and charging, the granularity of data that you can get from the platform that talks to the fleet manager or talks to us in order to be able to talk to the fleet manager about efficiency, about range, about where the vehicle's being charged, when it's being charged, how long is it being charged for. That can really help to build up a picture of, are there training needs for drivers, are there needs around the payment solutions that fleet customers have for their drivers, and it's that granularity of data that really makes a difference first and foremost. The second element to that as well is within our fleet management solution, we're able to bring in data from third-party sources as well. So things like data feeds from wall boxes in the depot, or from public charge point operators who have a data feed connected to payment cards. We can overlay that information onto the fleet management portal alongside each vehicle and give a really rounded picture of exactly how those vehicles are being used. And then finally, from the point of view of future-proofing, we also produce our vehicles with vehicle-to-grid in mind for the future. So that's a whole other layer of operational efficiency that fleets can benefit from when you think about the applications of a vehicle coming back to depot at the end of a shift, potentially still having 20-30% charge on it, and how much cost could be offset by putting that energy back into the warehouse or the depot or whatever it is, to then be able to charge the vehicle when energy's cheaper in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and I like that concept that first and foremost you're going to put it back into your own infrastructure so that you're not paying for energy twice, and then you're using the cheaper tariffs to re-energize the vehicle. But also when everything's full, you can send it back to the grid as well potentially and take some benefit. And I imagine a future where that market begins to come to life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's an immature market at the moment, and it's underutilized because the technology's only still just starting to come through. But I think the applications that can be done with our vehicles, and because of our agile approach and our project-based approach, the way that we can look after customers in life, we can explore all those avenues with them and with different providers who come into their world as quirky or new or innovative startups who want to do different things with energy.
Fantastic. It really feels like you've got a brilliant vision, and I'm so excited to see it come to life. And I of course we always worry, don't we, that is, oh gosh, will it? But with the backing that you've got, I feel very optimistic. Yeah,
I think it's a combination of the backing and the experience that brings, but also the way that we've worked to bring in the teams that we have. I'm fortunate enough to have an incredible team behind me in the UK now that will continue to grow through the course of this year. And you spoke to Seb earlier on, the passion comes through. You could pick anybody within our organisation and you'd get that same level of passion and dedication.
Matt, thank you for your time today, and thank you for the insight that you've brought.
Thank you.
So I took advantage of being here with the brains behind all of the operation, and fortunately I've got a very clever guy to help me understand the software-defined vehicle and all of the services around that. Seb, tell me what your job is.
My job is to define and to shape the future of what will be the next generation of purpose-built vehicle, and the future of our vans.
That sounds very exciting, if you don't mind me saying. Because I know that drivers uptime, the vehicle uptime, and the whole climate ESG reporting functions are around that. Just give me, a typical day in the life of Seb. What does a day look like for you?
My day is a bit of creativity, thinking about what could be next, a bit of analytics, intelligence, understanding what the others are doing, maybe to replicate, or maybe not to do the same errors, to learn from fail, to be in a startup mode and so on, and to experiment, to follow up some projects. We are in a mode where we develop an innovation mindset, which is not something typical in an OEM. So we could say that we are a next generation OEM. We take the best of both worlds. We take the legacy the decades of innovation and vans or truck from Renault, from Volvo Group, but we take also the best of the startup mode, of the thinking out of the box. So my day will be 30% thinking creativity out of the box, 30% learning from the landscape, and 30% about piloting, prototyping, experiencing, and the remaining 5% will be to get the internal buy-in from our general management and from the leadership.
So it's an exciting journey that you're on, and I know that I want to focus in, if we can, on 3 areas that Flexis are seemingly doing or planning to do very well. Uptime, so the vehicle and it performing well for the operator. The driver, there's been a lot of thought gone into the driver, and I love the way that has come to life. And then also just the kind of data that we can get out of the vehicles that helps us report on everything that's going on around us. And maybe you can quickly, before we go there, give me a little definition of the software-defined vehicle.
Yes, we will be one of the first vehicles that will deploy and on the road a true software-defined vehicle architecture. That means that we need to imagine that the vehicle is now a computer on wheels and no more a vehicle where you have some electronics feature inside. The concept is much broader of what we can imagine today. So the software-defined vehicle is just a piece of hardware, which is probably the skateboard that you have seen, which is the vehicle architecture, the vehicle platform. And then we have some software components that help us to define, to develop any application that can be also updated over the air.
I think that's so important, isn't it? That we don't have to take the vehicle back to the garage, to a dealership, or plug it in anywhere. You do that over the air.
You were mentioning that we were focusing on uptime.
Yeah.
That is clearly an example of how we are going to fill the promise of uptime by over-the-air update, over-the-air checks, over-the-air diagnostic controls.
Yeah.
We don't need anymore to go back to the workshop.
Yeah.
Or when we go to the workshop, it's absolutely because it is required and we have detected it or we have anticipated it. So the software-defined vehicle is just a core technology that allows us to build some innovative services and to make things possible where before it was more difficult to consider.
So let's continue on that uptime kind of mindset. So you talked about being able to access the information from the vehicle, even predict potential breakdowns or things that. Do you perceive that the vehicle will have to come to a garage sometimes, or will you be able to send a mobile workshop to the vehicle to say, actually, we've got to replace this or change that?
Ideally, we consider that the vehicle will not have to go in the workshop except for specific work. But the idea will be to handle that work and to do it in a hidden time.
Yeah.
It's exactly the uptime promise is absolutely one of the assets that the Volvo Group experience bring in the basket.
Yeah.
Volvo Group is a benchmark when it refers to uptime and uptime services for trucks, for EV trucks. And what we want to do is that we want to take the best of what they do and to adapt it to a specific segment, which is the LCV, the light commercial vehicle. And it is very different. In fact, the trucks are very controlled. Truck operators, they already have dedicated teams and so on site, and they have their internal workshop. They monitor every single piece, single part of the. In LCV, it's a no man's land. When you monitor LCV, when you analyze how they are maintained, how they are managed, you realize that it is when it can be. And the idea is to take the best of the uptime promise for the truck and to adapt to the LCV and to be the first to do that. The promise is to be nearly to achieve a 99% at least of availability of the truck, of the light trucks, so that it can be ready for delivering.
Yeah.
So, and our motto for uptime, our motto for the van, for what we call the purpose-built vehicle is to be business ready. Right. Business ready for uptime and business ready for the operator, so that all the information will be delivered, not only for managing the truck, but also for helping and augmenting the routing optimization and so on, and to adapting, adjusting the route and so on. So we are just a tool, an enhanced tool, and that's the way we see and we have conceived and we have designed the vehicle. Yeah. We are not providing a vehicle and then services. We are just providing a full solution that will help the operator to make their job better and to make more easy the life of the drivers.
So you're saying it's not software to help the vehicle, it's a vehicle that is software enabled and it's all in one package. Yeah.
And even software, well, you have the hardware, you have the software, and you have the service. Yeah. Software is just an enabler, but at the end of the day, what is important is that what we are selling is a full solution of services. So that's what I will sell to you. What I will promise will be to have a vehicle up and running every day, each morning. Fantastic. And for that, we monitor, we anticipate, we predict, and we orchestrate. And for this orchestration, what we realize is that in the light commercial vehicle landscape, they are not equipped with fleet managers, with people. So we need to have this center. Yeah. So that's why we are building up a customer operational center, human-driven, that will be there to check all the parameters of the vehicle, to anticipate. Of course, they will probably be assisted by AI. Otherwise, if I don't say that we use AI, I will not do my job. But of course, we will implement some AI for assisting humans to help other humans. Yeah. Humans that orchestrate, that will also help humans that drive and that delivers.
Well, that was a nice segue there, Seb. Humans drive these vehicles, and I know that in the way that you've designed the vehicles, and I've had a chat with you and with other people within Flexis, that it's very clear that the driver is being supported, particularly in the delivery van, the step-in van. Tell me about the focus on the driver.
Our vehicle is business ready, but it is also driver first. Why? Because taking into consideration all the features that will help the driver to make his job safer, more efficient, is something that we have been looking for. And the idea initially, and the idea is to, the motto that we have is to reduce the mental load and the physical load of the drivers. We know that a typical driver or he can afford 80, 100 deliveries a day. That means 80, 100 stops a day. Yeah. A stop is a stress. What do I need to do? You have probably a lot of actions to do to realize. So we help them not to care about driving, to care about only their job. And not to care about some other aspects of the vehicle. Yeah. So we help them to do their job, to execute in a very safer environment.
Safe and simple, it seems. I mean, the button is a great thing, and I'm going to get one of your colleagues to talk about the button.
Absolutely, Paul. And the button can be a physical button, as we have but it can also be a digital button. You could have, we can have a screen, and our screen is fully customizable. Right. Okay. And that's the beauty of the SDV, is that once you have a system, it can continuously improve. So we could imagine a digital button. You just touch on the button and a lot of things can happen. Yeah,
which is incredible. And I mean, you know me, everybody, I love that focus on the driver. The driver doesn't get, in the car world, we see the driver get a nice car, lower benefit in kind, and tax insurance, all that sort of stuff. But for the commercial vehicle user, they don't get as many benefits. And I love that you've really put them at the heart of the deal.
They are at the heart, because we know that if we want to differentiate, we need to talk their language. Yes. We need to be on their side, Yeah. And that's why the value proposition, the distinctive assets that Flexis will have, is not only we are not there only to sell vehicles. We are here to build a strong, holistic value proposition dedicated to deliveries in urban conditions. Yeah. The basic statements. The first statement is, how can we deliver more and more goods in more and more constrained environments? And it's a terrible equation. And this equation at the heart is the delivery guy.
Yeah.
And we have not found any robot today.
No.
So that's why when we talk about autonomous vehicle, okay, some part of the vehicle can be autonomous. And this is the beauty of the software-defined vehicle. We could imagine in the future, because I'm doing prospective, so I'm anticipating the trends. And probably when a vehicle enters into the warehouse, we could develop some autonomous features during which the driver can do other stuff. In warehouse, in a very limited space, vehicle could be autonomous. But when it is to deliver something from A to B, the driver needs to leave the vehicle to take the package, and all of this will probably justify a lot of research and development before being deployed. We know these small robots, and what we are working on is, in fact, we also want to consider that we are not here to replace the tools that our customers are using internally. We are here to help them augmenting these tools. And that's why our vehicle is sending, exchanging information, connectivity with the external world also. So what is interesting is, for example, you are a logistics company, you have your PDA application. Okay, we have met some customer which was giving 2 or 3 different smartphones and PDA to their drivers. What we want to do is that we want to be driver first. We have a huge screen. This screen can be customizable. That means that the morning you are working for DPD, you just touch the button DPD, and all the environment that you see on the screen and that is provided for the data exchange will be sent to DPD. The afternoon you are working for DHL, no problem, you just touch DHL or say DHL, because we are also thinking about some new kind of interfaces. You just touch the button DHL, and then all the interfaces can become DHL look and feel. That is a software-defined vehicle. The software-defined vehicle allows to adapt the context of the vehicle instantly without any change that we had to do before, though we didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we need in the marketplace. And I know that you even go further than this and like intervening, helping routing, providing reporting, that whole ecosystem of data exchange to help everybody, give reporting, but make the drivers efficient, help them route, and of course that reduces the mental load as well, doesn't it?
Yeah. In fact, the van, of course, helps the driver to execute his job in very clean, safe conditions. But the van is also a hub, a data hub, that can also exchange and receive information from all the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So, for example, we are also considering some innovation topics with cities. What can we do with smart cities? And for example, helping a driver to be informed before on some works, on some road works, can be also something that will help him in his daily task. Helping to go directly to the right parking segment. Exchanging data so that you can also trigger some access with the gates automatically is something that we also are considering. It is just the beginning. In fact, the software-defined vehicle offers the connectivity that opens a door of where sky is the limit, I would say.
Yeah.
In fact, and we are converging the world of IoT, Internet of Things, with the world of automotive industry.
Wow. I mean, for me, this is a really exciting step forward, and I feel very confident that we're going to see this come to market. I've spoken to many manufacturers that have tried this, but it feels with Renault and Volvo and CMA, the whole team seems to be pushing in the right direction. There's a good foundation and a good people thinking this.
They are pushing in the good direction, and they are letting us.
Yes.
Doing and developing this, this independency.
Yeah.
Because I think this kind of concept, this kind of vision, which is an holistic vision, where now a vehicle is just a component of an holistic defined solution, you know, dedicated to a specific segment, is something which cannot be done inside this huge company.
Yeah.
It's too complex.
Yeah.
So because it's different.
Yeah.
And the point is that we take the best of both worlds.
Yes.
We take the legacy of our parent companies, the legacy of Renault in designing, in manufacturing light trucks, the legacy of Volvo Group, which is a clear benchmark of excellence in the truck services, and of course CMA CGM, which allow us to learn in the field of what are the expectations, how can we help the driver with operational. So what we do is something that we are experiencing on the field. And this culture must be, this legacy must be combined with the innovation thinking, the creative thinking, the startup mindset that we try also to push inside.
Yeah. Well, Seb, listen, it's been a real privilege to talk with you today.
No, it's a privilege to welcome you here. And I'm looking forward to have this field experimentation when the vehicle will be on the road. And
I will love to be able to capture that with you and just see how this all comes to life. But go, Seb, one thing.
No, tell me. I'm sure that we have talked about the safety of the driver, but we also need to talk about the planet.
Indeed. Yes.
Our vehicle is also working to make a cleaner and a greener space.
Yes.
Because it is part of the promise. How can we decarbonate while being viable, while being more efficient than before?
Yeah.
This is a challenge. And for that, we also have to monitor what happens on the field. And for that, we use all the intelligence in the vehicle to capture the right data, transform this data, and send the data over the air to provide the right ESG indicators and analytics. So it is something which can be done instantaneously without any burden. You just over the air you get access to what is and we can, with the intelligence of the vehicle, because when I say that the SDV was also a PC or a smartphone on wheels, that means that a smartphone or a PC has its own intelligence.
Right.
So you can do some calculation. So it's something that can also help. For example, we could have a cost, or we could have a cost of carbon per package.
Right. Okay.
Delivered.
Yeah.
And we could have a high granularity of the data that can be collected and reported.
And I think that's going to really help businesses, because it is difficult to pinpoint all the areas where CO2 and NOx and SOx and all of the different things that are out there in the world, where they impact the most and how you're reducing it, because many companies really want to achieve this. So it sounds like the reports that you're going to produce are going to help provide the evidence that the market needs to be confident that that we're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely, and with our platform, with our vehicle, we can more easily provide the evidence and tangibilize the benefits for the planet.
Yeah, brilliant.
And the idea is to say, okay, our vehicle, for example, if you are acting in a specific domain of deliveries, can be the cold chain, it can be I don't know which kind of goods, but we can add very easily a sensor.
Right.
And that's also the beauty of the architecture of this vehicle. You just have to plug, and then it can work.
Fantastic.
Whereas before you had to go to the workshop, you had to wire a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, Seb, it's been phenomenal to understand a little bit about this, potentially class-leading vehicle when it arrives in less than a year, or around a year's time, I believe. So we can really be confident as we look at the products that are coming to the market, and we look forward to the driver being central, to have the vehicle on the road all of the time, and to have all of the reporting and insight that we need to be operationally excellent whilst saving the planet. Sounds like a good plan to me. Wow, what a day. The vision and the dreams of these guys to bring this vehicle, but with this concept, this vision to life really excites me. I love the fact that they'll turn around in 10.3 meters in a turning circle-y thing. I love the fact that the driver is absolutely at the heart of what they've thought about. They've talked about the mental load and the physical load for the driver. And of course, you know, hearing from Matt there about uptime and the focus on uptime and making this happen. This is brilliant. This in concept, right? If it gets to market, and that's the important thing, we've got to see this happen. Why can we be confident? Well, I can take a lot of confidence from the fact that, you know, this is born out of a relationship between Renault and Volvo. Let's be clear, Flexis are not Renault and Volvo or CMA CGM. They're not that. They are a total company all by themselves. And the great thing is that they have that IP to be able to sell to other people as well, which they're already doing. They've got the whole structure kind of sorted. So we can be really confident that this concept, this mindset, this approach, this IoT approach is going to come to market and is going to make a difference. And if half of what they say they get to do, then the van market is in for a treat in these specific sectors. And I'm hopeful that it won't just be limited to these particular sectors, that other sectors will begin to come on stream with the same mindset, with the same concept, and with the same focus on uptime, drivers, and technology for the future. What a brilliant mindset. Have a great day, everybody.